Tuesday, your forecast looks like a high of 3 degrees. The time now is 6:12. If you would like to be able to live and work in Australia or New Zealand or the UK with very few restrictions, no matter what your age is, then that is a shared vision with James Skinner, who has had this vision for a few years now. One he thinks just got a boost with Brexit, Britain's exit from the EU last week. James is a founder and CEO of CANZUK International. That is CANZUK. It is a non-profit advocacy group promoting the idea of a new alliance with Australia, New Zealand, and Britain. James is here. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am okay. CAN, Canada, Z, New Zealand, UK. Where's the Australia in that?
So C is the Canada, A is the Australia, New Zealand is NZ, and
New
UK.
Zealand.
Yeah.
See, so many ways you can read
There
that,
is. You're right.
Why did you want to create this organization that creates an alliance between Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK?
Simple, really, because these countries share so much in common through history, through ancestry. They've worked together on the international stage for decades. And CANZUK has actually been a term that's been used for many, many years, actually. It was originally started in the United Nations as a sort of a fun way to sort of abbreviate how these countries have worked together for so long, and they always used to vote the same way in the UN Assembly. What we've done at CANZUK International is we've sort of revived that sort of period of dormancy that was there for decades and sort of brought about a new initiative for CANZUK to take on in the modern world. Okay,
tell me, if this alliance should ever come to pass, how this would benefit we Canadians.
Yeah, so we sort of advocate for 3 main objectives for it. So the first is we would like to see freer migration between the countries, providing that citizens are law-abiding and they pass certain health and security and checks and backgrounds. That would be based on the already existing template that exists between Australia and New Zealand. The second as well would be that these countries could trade freely with each other. So that would be the removal of barriers to commerce and tariffs. And that again would be based on a similar but different arrangement that's already in place between Australia and New Zealand. And then the third one as well would be foreign policy cooperation. So we already share our intel and our security, military and intelligence between these 4 countries, along with the United States. So that would work in conglomeration with NATO, and basically enhance the security for Canadians as well.
So let's talk about the United States,
Sure.
because of course we have a free trade agreement with it and Mexico yet to be finalized here in Canada. But what's it called? The new NAFTA is what it's being done.
Yeah.
USMCA is what it is. Would that and our immigration procedures with the United States be a stumbling block when it comes to our relations with these other countries, right? Australia, New Zealand, or the UK?
Yeah, not at all. I mean, obviously, the United States is a big partner for Canada, but it wouldn't be at all. It would actually be completely separate and independent from that. So Canada could continue its trading relationship with the United States and continue the current diplomatic agreements that it currently has. But there's nothing stopping Canada, for example, organizing trade and freer movement and foreign policy cooperation with the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand as well. The two would be completely separate. Whether the United States appreciates being put on the back burner in comparison to these other countries, that's completely, that's a different matter altogether. But there'd be nothing stopping Canada from pursuing this objective.
Given, as you say, our cooperation with these countries already, in terms of foreign policy, in terms of a lot of shared culture, in terms of a whole bunch of other things, why would we need this?
I think as well because, the first thing that comes to mind obviously is security and, working on our already existing agreement that we have with the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance. Obviously, we're living in an increasingly sort of hostile world in terms of China and Russia and North Korea. So it's important for these countries, I think, to work together to promote a safer and more secure world, especially for Canadian citizens. Trade as well. Obviously, everybody appreciates, reduced barriers to commerce and lower tariffs because obviously that
not everyone, but yes,
well,
take
most.
your point.
I think I would say most Canadians, perhaps, but everybody appreciates lower costs and lower cost of living, and obviously having increased access to goods, and also as well for opportunity. For example, you could, if you wanted to, I'm not saying you ever would, but if you wanted to, you could go and live and work in Australia or New Zealand or the UK without having to go through the arduous immigration controls of visas and permits, and providing you're a law-abiding citizen, as I'm sure most people are, then it wouldn't be any problem at all. That it'd be that increased opportunity and increased freedom for people to do that, which I think is important.
So things change very quickly in the UK and not quickly at all in terms of Brexit in some ways. Does Brexit help this idea out? Does it help you out?
It really does, yeah. So for the longest time, we've wanted to bring the United Kingdom into this, hence, the UK as part of the name CANZUK. But obviously, the thorn in the side has been that the UK has not been able to negotiate its own trading arrangements and even its own immigration arrangements, really, because it's already had those with the EU, and it's had to, by law, organize and negotiate those arrangements with the European Union. But now that the UK is, quote unquote, an independent country from the European Union, then now that gives the UK a lot of liberty to pursue trade and migration and even, the foreign policy cooperation that CANZUK International is advocating for, because it's now independent.
What's been the reception to this idea from some of those other countries, from Australia, from New Zealand?
Yeah. It's been really good, both publicly and politically. So publicly, we commissioned independent polling about 2 years ago. In the UK, about 70% or close to 70% of the UK public support closer CANZUK ties. That's both with migration and trade. In Canada, it's actually higher with 76%. In Australia, it's 73%. And in New Zealand, it's the highest at 82%. And then, of course, there's the political support for it as well. So obviously here in Canada, we've had support from members of parliament like Marilyn Gladue, Erin O'Toole, John Brassard, Stephanie Coussy. Even the Conservative Party of Canada has adopted CANZUK as its official party policy. In the UK, the government right now under Boris Johnson are very, very supportive of it. Even Boris Johnson has come out in favour of it. New Zealand as well, the leader of the opposition out there is incredibly supportive of it and is looking to, capitalise on that in the coming election in the months ahead. And in Australia as well, there's also been support as well. So we've had support from senators and.
So the political support seems to be coming from the right side of the spectrum in all of these countries.
It does at the moment. We haven't planned it that way, but majority of it does come from that. But it's not entirely that case. For example, in the UK, we have an all-party parliamentary group specifically for CANZUK, which has got members of parliament as part of it, both from Conservative, Labour, and even the Scottish National Party. And even in New Zealand right now, the current government under Jacinda Ardern is a Labour government, but they have indicated strong support for Canada and the UK to join on to their already existing trade agreement. So where right now it would be called the Closer Economic Relations Trade Agreement, they want to bring it in and rename it as the Closer Commonwealth Economic Relations Trade Agreement for Canada and the UK to join. So,
okay. Yeah. We will wait and see. Thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
James Skinner, founder and chief executive officer, CEO of CANZUK International, nonprofit organization that is advocating for the free movement of goods and people between Canada, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. Jennifer Allen is here with a look at the commute.